Welcome to episode 57 of the CanadaFootballChat.com Recruiting Masters podcast, brought to you by the CFC Insider. We're Katie and Clint Utley, and you're listening to the number one place for all your football recruiting and prospect news across Canada. If you're listening to the show for the very first time, welcome. We're glad you've joined us. We've also got Quincy Forde on the podcast again today to give us all the scoop on the NCAA news that's going on down south. Quincy, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good. Before we get started, just be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter at Chat Football, Instagram, CFC_football, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as don't forget to sign up for your exclusive gold membership today on CanadaFootballChat.com to learn more about the prospects that we're about to talk to. Most of them are ranked or have been ranked, so you can check out all of those rankings on the rankings tab on CanadaFootballChat.com. But let's get to it. So we've got our first prospect, Matthew Bergeron. He's a sophomore, an offensive tackle. He's 6'4", 312 pounds, out of Victoriaville, Quebec. He went to Thetford, Cégep, and now he's playing at Syracuse. He's probably one of the better tackle prospects coming out of Canada in the last number of years, we think. He has all the tools that you're looking for in a left tackle, but he also does play right tackle. Quincy, what do you think about Matthew?
Yeah, I know. As you mentioned, out of Thetford, it's listed on his bio that he is the first Division I football player to come out of Thetford, Cégep. So I guess, I don't know if that's true, but I guess they say it, so I'll take their word. But yeah, this guy stepped into a starting role last year after injuries at left tackle, and he just stepped in and was better than anyone else on their offensive line. So that was good for a freshman All-American nod from PFF last year.
Wow.
And if you watch them, I watch just a bit of them because I can't stand watching Syracuse get blown out. I haven't watched that much of that games when they've been on in the few times they have been on, just because they're always blowouts and there's better games to watch. Yeah, he's a guy who looks very athletic. I went back and watched his Cégep stuff because he's only a sophomore, so he's 2 years removed from it. Well, I guess a year and a half removed from it. But yeah, he's very athletic, it seems, for an offensive lineman. He's a guy who I definitely want to keep on my radar as a potential, very high CFL pick in a couple years. But quick first step, very athletic. He can pull from his position and come across the offensive line because he can move. And he can get to the second level effectively, showing his athleticism. And he shows good hand placement and sustains his contact and drives people back. So He looks like a guy who we should certainly keep our eyes on.
Clint, do you remember Bergeron?
Yeah, since I found him.
Oh.
No, I'm just joking.
Let's not start that again.
We use the term lightly. Every now and then when we come across a left tackle or a super athletic young offensive tackle, we call him a baby left tackle. He is probably the ultimate baby left tackle we've seen in Canada probably in the last 3 or 4 years. The only hiccup on him, and hopefully scubs don't get hung up on it, is the fact that he's not 6'5" to 6'6" or 7, which is super silly. If people don't see that number and don't check that box, that would be dumb on their part, because he's super athletic.
What are his arms like? What's his length?
He has length. It's just he doesn't check that 6'5" box, which is somebody but anyways, he was a baby left tackle, and then he went there and he started as a freshman, which is obviously really impressive considering there was one other really good Canadian offensive lineman there, and he literally springboarded over him.
Oh, Patrick Davis?
Yeah, and he's bounced inside and outside and all over the map. And I don't know if he's even bounced back to Canada yet because I haven't paid attention. But
no, he's still there. But last year, he seemed like they're 6th or 7th lineman, and this year he almost seems like he's I don't know, their 7th or 8th lineman this year.
Probably just trying to chase him off now. Anyways, but Bergeron was a baby left tackle. He's probably the best, in terms of natural tools and movement skills that we saw in a couple. I remember him at Thetford Mines. Thetford Mines is it's literally in the middle of nowhere. And they do a good job recruiting
kids. There's quite a few Thetford Cégep kids from there.
They do a good job recruiting, but they also have an interesting concept where they actually send a coach over to Europe. And he goes into France and he recruits kids from the suburbs of Paris. And they actually get some athletes at that school that you would not expect to see in the middle of rural Quebec. kudos to them. And I'm kind of not too surprised that they might call him the first scholarship athlete out of there, because they are Division III, right? They're single A. So it's not like that's great CJIP football. I mean, all CJIP football is pretty solid compared to other provinces, but yeah, that's like, it's Div 3 CJIP. But yeah, you could just tell by his film when he was at Bedford's. But I think he was really fortunate in the fact that he kind of blew up right during his kind of senior season or his third season. And we pumped his tires like crazy there for a while, because that's how excited we were about him. Good for him to go there and get as much playing time as he has in his first 2 years.
Our next prospect is Jared Wayne. He's another sophomore. He's a receiver, 6'3", 195, out of Peterborough, Ontario. He played at Trinity College School before he went down south to the prep school, and right now he's at Pitt. But he was a big body. He's a big body receiver. I think he was actually a quarterback in high school, and a pretty good one. Quincy, what do you got on Jared?
I just watched his every single catch he had in his 2019 season. There's a compilation of that on YouTube, which I was thankful to find. He's a guy with obviously a solid frame at 6'3", 195. He's effective over the middle of the field and takes advantage of that frame. Like, it seemed they used him on a lot of short tossers, and he was a guy who could make the most with his yards after the catch ability. He's not like necessarily like the quickest, but like has like good straight line speed and solid quickness for his size, and is like crafty after the catch. So they used him on short crossers a lot to let him run after the catch, and they used him on a lot of deep posts where they kind of took advantage of his size in the middle of the field. And he's a guy, he has a good focus when making those catches like that, like defender over his back, and he still manages to lock in and haul them in. So that impressed me. But last year, like as a true freshman at Pitt, he had 18 catches for 261 yards and a touchdown in 8 games played. And so far this year, he has 21 catches for 326 yards and a touchdown in 8 games played. So he's been a solid guy in his first 2 years at the college level.
What do you remember about Wayne, Clint?
Jared, I remember he was a really, really good quarterback when he was in Port Hope at Trinity. And then after that, he was huge into the 7-on-7 stuff. And he was kind of that first wave of Canadians that really started going down to camps and such. So, I mean, he had a bunch of offers before he ever went to Clearwater. And then once he was at Clearwater, I think it kind of picked up for him just because he put up ridiculous numbers when he was down there. But I just remember he was always a really good athlete. I could see your comparison to Claypool, maybe not as heavy, but like big body with a huge catch radius kind of wingspan thing. So the fact that he's already up over 40 catches and close to 500 yards with a bunch of touchdowns as a sophomore, and he didn't get redshirted, that's pretty impressive. But yeah, he was a super talented quarterback. I remember him being huge into the 7-on-7 stuff. And I'm pretty sure like a lot of his offers, but I'm pretty sure because I remember now because it's 2 years old now, they were coming off him going down to camps and lighting up the camps and the combines, because he can actually, he A, looks the part, and B, he can run pretty well for his size.
But Pitt's not doing great, are they?
Pitt's not having a good year now.
Yeah.
Neither is Syracuse. Yeah, neither is Oklahoma State.
Don't talk about Oklahoma State with Quincy.
Okay, neither is Tennessee.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Chuba Hubbard, but
he's already down in the dumps.
Oh man, we were like this year's probably cost him so much money.
Yeah, I don't really know why he didn't go last year. Well, I guess rather, I don't know why he didn't just opt out of this year entirely and prepare for next year.
Yeah.
Like, I get not going in last year because it was just a stacked running back class, but like I don't really get what he had to prove playing this year. Like literally nothing. Like absolutely nothing.
They probably sold him on the Heisman, and then he's like, I don't know what went on, and all of a sudden that freshman or his backup ran for 200 yards a week ago.
Yeah, that was their third stringer.
Seriously?
Wow.
Yeah.
Like 225, which
like,
that makes it look even worse.
They arguably, like in my opinion, have like one of the best, if not like the best running back rooms in the country though. But like, yeah, that was their third stringer, and their backup running back, LD Brown, is also like very impressive. Like I think an NFL caliber vibe.
Well, but we're not talking about them.
Well, he is like the highest profile Canadian player for the most part. Like, yeah, he is. Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
You could argue Mechie now.
Yeah, he'll fall into that role, especially when all those receivers leave at Alabama. He'll be the number one guy as
Should
a
be, at
junior,
least.
right? Because he's a sophomore, Mechie.
Yeah, true.
He'll go there, be the
sophomore.
leading receiver at Alabama, and then he will promptly be taken in the first round, and then that's it. But anyways,
Yes.
we're not talking
We're
about
not
them.
talking about that.
We're going on to Alexander Dumais, another kid that I found when he was in Sec 4.
Yeah, he's a redshirt sophomore. Defensive tackle, 6'4", 272 pounds. He's out of Montreal, Quebec. He went to St. Paul's, and he's at Fresno State. Like Clint said, we saw him a number of years ago. Sec 4 is the way that they label high school kids in Quebec.
Grade 10.
He has a lot of the measurables that you want to see in a defensive lineman. Quincy, what do you like about Dumais?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gotten the opportunity to see him much because for, like, I guess obvious reasons, being in Ontario and the fact that Fresno State's not really a big-time FBS school. I don't really get access to any of their games, but I went back and watched his senior tape from St. Paul, and he was at St. Paul in California.
California, yeah.
Actually, I know last year he had 11, through 11 games played, he had 13 tackles, a couple sacks, and a forced fumble. But yeah, in his senior film, our next guy, like similar to him, they kind of reminded me of each other a little. Although the next guy, in my opinion, is a little more athletic. Yeah, Alex Dumais has like active hands on the defensive line. I like the way he used them with a good swim move. Obviously long at like 6'4", 270. Although he hasn't registered any pass breakups in college, I like the way he broke up a lot of passes in high school. I'll just leave it at that. Like he
had 8 defensive passes in a single game.
Yeah, like he disrupted the passer, to say the least, in high school. But hopefully he can pad those passes defended stats in college and keep it going like he did in high school, but hasn't done that yet, although he has been a very solid player thus far.
Do you remember, Alex?
Well, of course I remember Alex. I saw him when he's in grade 10, and he's Curantabel. Is that how you pronounce it, Katie? The Wolves?
Curantabel, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he's Curantabel. So he plays, well, he did before he went down to St. Paul's, but he was always awesome. He was just a freak when he was in Quebec. And then he went down, and I'm not sure how good that level of football is where he was at St. Paul's, but you could tell you've both seen his highlight tape. He's actually part of a pretty good group of Canadian linemen at Fresno State right now, because there's Dante Bull,
Yeah, we talked about him last week.
who's probably playing a lot, underachieving. Then there's Mark Bien,
David BNM,
Yeah.
who looks like an NFL player. So yeah, he's part of a group of 3 that are at Fresno, that's awesome for Canadian kids. But I remember he was awesome in high school. And I mean, I don't want to say we found him. However, we're the first one that started pumping his name. Most of these kids forget who first found them. We understand that. So they don't really have to thank us at any point in time. It's just part of our job. We get paid to do this. But at the end of the day, it is us who found you that allowed us to find you.
Wow. Can I put the cut?
Cut. What? It's the truth, man. Just ask the next kid. We found him too.
Come on, bro.
Dumais was awesome. He was awesome.
I was also gonna say, like you mentioned, the three guys at Fresno. I guess they like their Canadians because they also just had the DB Matt Boateng. He just left there, so he's with the Argos now, but he was just a cornerback there too. So like he would have been in what draft was that 2019? So yeah, like he just came out of there too. So just another guy.
But we're going to move on to, like you said, Lwal Uguak. He's a Western kid out of the West. He's out of Edmonton, Alberta. Played at our CFC40 Harry Ainley High School in Edmonton. He's a junior. He's a defensive tackle, 6'5", 270 pounds. He's at UConn. He's one of the better defensive end prospects, like I said, coming out of Western Canada in quite some time. He had a fantastic career at Ainley. I actually got a chance to watch him a couple times live as I was covering one or two of the Ainley games. And he was a CFC first team All-Canadian. So high school, just a total stud. What do you think, Quincy?
Yeah, I looked at his high school stuff and he looked absolutely dominant. But I kind of liked watching Uguak and Dumais highlights back to back. I think I was more of a Uguak fan through the past 2 seasons because he came in and like played immediately as a true freshman in a rotational role. but through 24 games, he has 35 tackles, 4 sacks, 2 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. So he's certainly been productive. But yeah, kind of like Dumais, maybe to like even more so, like Uguak is long. He's another long guy, and he definitely has a motor on the field. Like he'll chase down plays even outside of the backfield. Like he's good for more than just making plays in the backfield, like a lot of defensive linemen. He looks ridiculously athletic for a guy that size. But yeah, also like Dumais, he was also like a guy who could swat passes down, had good hands, good swim move. Like, yeah, they looked similar, but I think I'm a bigger Uguak fan, but also another good one.
He was fun to watch at Aiden because he just sticks out like a sore thumb. Clint, what do you like about him?
Just another one we found. He was a man child in high school. You could tell when he was in grade 10.
Yeah.
They were like, he's going to be so good because he was like perfectly proportioned. And then he was like long and athletic. And the thing that always stuck out to me is because back then, that's when there was really good football in, well, not that there isn't now, but like in Edmonton was at kind of its pinnacle or its high point because you had guys playing against each other in high school games. I'll let Quincy say the linebacker's name from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I was thinking that the other day. Like they would have had like him, Amen Ogbongbemiga, Chuba Hubbard, Dean Leonard.
Yeah, like they're all playing against each other.
All there in that Alberta loop at the same time.
Well, we watched a game where Ainley played Notre Dame, and Notre Dame beat them in the provincial final. And I think our running back at Oklahoma State had a complete meltdown at the end of the game. So those guys all played against each other. So that was like at the pinnacle of that. And there was like some couple really good linemen that also played at Oklahoma State, who actually are from the Calgary area, who ended up in the CFL already. They also played in that era. So
it was like Dean Richard, an Alberta guy?
I think he might have been the first pick in the draft a year or two ago.
Yeah, he was, although
made absolutely no sense. I don't know. Let's draft a guy.
CFL draft can get a little weird sometime, but he went first overall.
At least he was alive.
Don't know if he's a legit first overall guy, but yeah, he went first overall.
For those of you who didn't understand my joke, there was a point where a CFL team might have drafted a dead.
That happened?
Yeah, you can look it up. I'm sure if you asked the other very knowledgeable football person in your household, he would be able to reference it quite quick. But Lwal was just a freak all the way through. He was just awesome. I liked him from grade 10. And he has a little brother who could be just as good.
He has a little brother coming up as well, who's also a CFC 100 ranked player.
Yeah.
Which you can find on the, if you have a gold membership, you can check him out on CanadaFootballChat.com.
Oh, like your sarcasm, you're dialing in, Katie.
We're going to move on to our last prospect, Matthew Derks. He's a senior offensive guard, 6'3", 315 pounds. He's out of Brantford, Ontario. Played at Salisbury in Connecticut. He's now at Delaware State. But I believe up in Canada, he played at Assumption, but I may be wrong on that. But we actually don't really remember that much about him. So I'm going to let Quincy take it over.
Yeah, like Delaware State being an FCS school, also probably like as someone like me, I don't have much access to like their game stuff, but I went back and watched his high school stuff too. Yeah, he went to Salisbury in Connecticut. He looks like he's good with driving defenders back and sustaining his contact. I don't know if he's he's definitely not quite as athletic as our previously mentioned O-lineman Matthew Bergeron. But yeah, Matthew Derks should be a CFL pick in this year's draft, assuming he doesn't go back another year with me, because I don't really know why he wouldn't. But whatever. Yeah, like he's a CFC40 for this upcoming draft, and whether he be in this draft or the next, he should be a CFL draft pick as a multi-year starter Division I offensive lineman. So figured I'd get him in here at 6'3", 315.
But do you remember anything about him?
I remember him being on our list, and I remember watching his film. I mean, I totally agree with Quincy. If you can find like Canadian offensive linemen, or can't remember all the terminology in the CFL. If he's like a Canadian and he's played multiple years or started multiple games down in the NCAA, they'll always find places like that for especially interior offensive linemen, because that's like a Canadian position for the most part. So a guy like that could very well get drafted. But they had actually, who's the running back at Delaware State? He's the running back from Hamilton.
They had Thomas Bertrand Hudon.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
They also had, like, there was, I think not this past year, but the year before. I don't know where the guy went, but Michael Chris Ike, or I think that's his name.
He was a high ranked
he
kid.
ran it for a ton in high school. Remember?
He was a one-man show.
Oh yeah.
Out of St. Thomas More.
Yeah.
I think they went in the same class actually, but I don't know where Chris Heike is. Like I lost him. I've kind of been looking for him actually. I don't know where
We
he went.
lost him a couple times in high school.
I just know Bertrand Hudon's still on the roster and I think productive. Like he definitely sees the field. Like I know he's had I think a couple 100+ yard rushing games. Yeah, like Chris Heike, he kind of just like after that 1 year on their roster, I don't know where he went.
Be interesting. He'll probably, you know what, kids like that, either they bounce down to a JUCO or they simply straight up flunk out. But I can guarantee you, probably in the next year or so, when he all of a sudden he's going to surface at a youth sports school.
I heard from like one of my friends who saw him at like a St. Thomas More football game last year that like he's at a like he met this guy and I think he's at like a Division II school or something like D2, D3 JUCO, like one of those.
There's always guys like that. Jerome Messam was like that.
Yeah, because Jerome
had a big splash, but then never stuck anywhere and floated around.
I don't know who that is.
Jerome Messam was a really, really good Canadian running back who probably like his potential was just out of this world, but he never really
Where did he go?
found a home or settled down until he got into the CFL, and then he got in a bit of trouble at the end of his career.
Where did he go to high school?
Notre Dame and Brampton, who no longer have a football team. Notre Dame had like some good Canadians, like the Brampton Notre Dame had some good Canadians. I'm trying to think who it was that they, who's the other defensive?
All those brothers who played defensive line, Notre Dame, Brampton. They all went, one of them was a defensive tackle for the Lions. Another guy played for the Jets for a number of years. Can't remember their names though. There was other kids too. Machalenko went there. There was a whole bunch of kids out of Brampton, Notre Dame. It's kind of shocking that they don't have a football team anymore.
Oh, that's who I'm the Westerman.
Yeah, Jamal Westerman and Jabril Westerman and Jabbar.
Westerman and Jamal Westerman, who I was thinking of. Yeah, those two. They went to Notre Dame, and so did Jerome Messam. And I think there's another guy who I'm forgetting too. But
there was a bunch of them. And they all had offers, and some of them got through, and some of them sorted it out, and some of them didn't sort it out.
Yeah, like Jerome Messam, I want to say, had an offer from Rutgers coming out of high school.
He ended up at like some flaky JUCO in Minnesota.
Went to JUCO, then was in NAIA because they have lower academic standards than NCAA. But, yeah.
Well, maybe not as bad as K-State.
K-State, 96.
You gotta say you don't have to write your SATs to get into K-State.
You know, if you have a GPA over 3.25, there's no requirement
to write the SAT score. That's a standardized test.
No, you don't have to write it.
Oh my god. Can you imagine? It's just like, oh, everybody take pottery and underwater basket weaving, get a 3.7 and just rock it right into K-State. Come to Manhattan campus where Toto and the Tin Man live.
Quincy, didn't you say they have like a 95% admission rate?
Yeah, 96% acceptance rate. Might as well brand themselves as a junior college.
If you got a heartbeat, you are in. I guess they should bash.
What is K-State? What's their mascot?
Wildcats.
Kansas State Wildcats.
Wildcats.
They have
Wildcats.
They have an above average football program, or they used to when Bill Schneider was there.
No, yeah, their football teams, like, they're solid. Like, they're
They should be. They can let anybody in.
That's where Michael Bishop went to school.
Yeah, they upset Oklahoma this year.
They always do that, though. They always have one or two of those every year. Teams like that will drive you nuts because they take kids who don't get recruited by anybody else, and then they groom them and turn them into, like, legitimate football players who understand how to win and be part of a team. Just like Iowa. Iowa does that, where you're just like, where the heck did that kid come from? And then it's just like he's just a monster.
No, I gotta say, when Katie asked what their mascot was, it made me feel sick because I feel like I can name any FBS team's mascot if you ask me their team name. So like, might have to give that test a go sooner or later. But
well, who's the mascot name at Fresno State? Oh, the Bulldogs.
Bulldogs, yeah.
Oh, I wanted to quiz him.
Oh, quiz him?
Yeah.
You're gonna quiz him? Well, yeah, but these are all softballs right here. Maybe Delaware State. You know what Delaware State is?
They're FCS, but they're the...
Yeah, that's it for us today. Hope you enjoyed today's episode of Recruiting Masters. Be sure to follow us, like I said at the start, on our Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and don't forget to purchase your exclusive CFC Insider membership today for access to rankings, analysis, and your daily football recruiting news across Canada. You'll need a gold level in order to access the top tier content. Thanks, Quincy, for joining us again. Like always, you do an awesome job.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And we will see everyone next week on the Recruiting Masters, brought to you by the CFC Insider.
Looking for more exclusive Canadian recruiting content? Become a CFC Insider Gold or Silver member today for access to rankings, analysis, and the latest recruiting news from across the country.